Hello everyone. Thanks for joining us for this Clar8ty presentation webinar. We've got a couple of exciting guest speakers lined up for you tonight. Our VP of Product Development, Christopher Neville, will be interviewing Dr. Veronique Desaulniers. It's an honor to have Dr. Veronique Desaulniers, or as we call her, Dr. V, as our guest this evening. She is the founder of Breast Cancer Conqueror, and she's a powerhouse member of the Clar8ty Advisory Board. And she has extensive experience and knowledge about using our flagship product called Clar8ty. She's been in the wellness field for decades. After graduating from Life Chiropractic College in Atlanta, Georgia in 1979, she went on to study extensively in various fields of energy medicine, including bioenergetics, meridian stress analysis, homeopathy, and digital thermography. Christopher Neville is our VP of Product Development with over 25 years of experience in advertising, wellness, and the direct sales industry. Chris Neville brings an unparalleled perspective to the Clar8ty product development team. You know him, you love him. Chris Neville, are you online with us tonight?
I certainly am, Bernard. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, and I'm super excited to have Dr. V in the call as well. Thank you. Well, guys, welcome, and certainly to Dr. V. Thanks very much for joining our call.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I love Calibrate and Clar8ty and what the company stands for, so it's always a pleasure to be able to work with you, Chris.
Thanks so much. Well, look, I know that there's a lot of our brand promoters and our customers are going to be really intrigued, interested in not only what you've got to share today, but I really think that it's as a general awareness of what's going on the planet as far as the healthcare system is concerned, and what those steps may be that can help perhaps himself or a loved one. And I want to start off with, focusing on the Breast Cancer Conqueror website. You've created a phenomenal platform, which is not only full of information, but it's also, I believe, inspiring from the point of view of giving women and families hope around a really incredibly difficult and sensitive subject as well. So can you maybe share with our listeners a little bit about, your background and then how this site came to be?
Well, thanks, Chris. I appreciate you sharing my message of hope with everybody. So basically, from the age of 16, I knew that my mission was to bring wellness to the world. It was just one of those light bulb moments, and that was my passion. From that very young age, I became a chiropractor, a bioenergetic chiropractor, and I was rocking and rolling in my practice. And 1983, my father was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And he was basically given no hope and sent home to die, which he did in about 6 weeks. And, during that time, I was questioning the doctors, and they had absolutely no answers. They gave my father no hope. But I knew that there was something that could have been done. So 1983, no internet back then. So I went to the library, started doing research. I connected with different cancer clinics, natural cancer clinics, which back then were few and far between. And I discovered that there were things that could have been done for my father, but unfortunately for him, it was too late. So that really lit a fire in my soul, and I took that information and brought it with me into my practice. And within a matter of just a few months, I was seeing people reverse illnesses like MS and lupus and, various autoimmune diseases, rheumatoid arthritis, cancer, all these things that were being reversed because of their lifestyle changes and the principles and the laws of the universe and nature that they were applying. So fast forward, I'm in practice about 25 years, and I'm getting ready for work, and bam, I'm in the shower and I feel a lump in my left breast. Well, my gut, and I innately knew that it was not a benign cyst. I just knew that there was something seriously wrong. So after going through various types of non-traditional testing, I, discovered I had breast cancer. So the blow to me was, how could somebody like me develop breast cancer? Here I was teaching people, helping people get well, reversing all kinds of illnesses, and yet here I was with this disease. I thought I was doing everything right. I had home births, breastfed my children, I exercised, I ate well, ate organic before organic was in style. I was doing, homeopathy and herbs and, all kinds of great things for myself. But there were specific pieces of the puzzle that I missed. And so if someone like me who was in the industry for over 25 years missed some of those pieces, how much more so would women who were, trying to find answers and search for results, how much more difficult it would be for them. So that led me to create what I call the 7 Essential System. It's basically a step-by-step guide that if you follow, you never have to fear cancer or any disease for that matter.
Well, that's not only an inspiring story, but I think that for so many people today, when they hear the big C, there's that moment of, I guess, would be dread or panic, and no doubt you've experienced that and been able to guide many people through that kind of reality moment in itself. But the way you approach and what the Breast Cancer Conqueror and how it's designed, from my understanding, is truly the meaning of a holistic approach to wellness, and it encompasses the whole being, not just the physical body, but certainly the mental and emotional as well. Can you maybe share what those 7 essential steps are, or those principles, just as a brief overview, please?
Sure. So essential number 1 is let food be your medicine, and we'll be talking a little bit about that this evening and sharing some of the nutrients in Calibrate. But when you look at food, we know that food affects our bodies on a cellular level. So that's very basic. Essential number 2 has to do with reducing your toxic exposure. We live in a toxic world. We can't live in a bubble, but there's specific things that you can do to minimize your toxic exposure from an environmental point of view, from what you have in your home, from the things you put on your body and in your body. Essential number 3 has to do with balancing your energy. We are energetic beings. We're 1 billionth physical matter, and the rest is all energy. So what do we do to balance that? Well, you look at chiropractic care, you look at acupuncture, you look at specific exercises. Sleep is very important to balance your energy. Balancing your hormones plays a big part of that as well. Essential number 4 is to heal the emotional wounds, and this was one of the more difficult ones for me, and it is for most people, because we're real good at working on tangible things, lifestyle changes and supplements and foods and that sort of thing. But when it comes to really healing your heart, healing your emotional wounds, self-nurturing, self-love, forgiving yourself, forgiving others, that's not so easy for a lot of people. So essential number 4 is very, very important. Essential number 5 has to do with biological dentistry. What we put in our mouth, specifically in our teeth, can have a huge impact on our health, because amalgam fillings, for example, some of the metals that are used in there, like mercury or aluminum, cadmium, so some of those metals are classified as what we call metalloestrogens, so they can actually stimulate estrogen production in the body. So understanding the basics of putting clean materials in your mouth and working with a biological dentist who understands the whole dental body health connection. Essential number 6 has to do with repairing your body with therapeutic plants and herbs, and we know that there are thousands of published studies. If you just go to pubmed.org, the National Library of Medicine, you see thousands and thousands of studies that prove that natural medicine is very effective in preventing disease as well as healing disease. And then lastly, number 7 has to do with very early detection. Traditional medicine uses specific tools and blood work that can find things when it's a lump or a bump, but to find it when it's very, very tiny, the size of a pinhead, they haven't taken advantage of the technology. So there's specific blood tests out there. There's the use of thermography, which can detect physiological changes, 5 to 8 years before it appears on a mammogram or in a blood test. So those are, the basic 7, and if you follow, you know, the step-by-step guidelines, you really can create vibrant health for yourself. You can prevent disease, and you can really heal disease, no matter what that label is, whether it's cancer or an autoimmune disease or whatever it is that you've been diagnosed with.
Fantastic. You mentioned there about the various starting points as far as nutrition is concerned, and you know, many people are obviously becoming more and more familiar with you know, having a healthier diet, and dealing also perhaps with life and the legacy of different experiences where you've got the emotional body and challenges that may have emerged there, and the opportunity to either forgive yourself and or another person, and that holistic approach to me recognizes the fact that, you know, we're not just a body, that there's sometimes not so much what you eat, but what's eating you. And this is also a greater understanding that, you know, there aren't just isolated components that happen in the body, and we address it as fragmented pieces. So I really love your approach. But one of them specifically you mentioned with regard to nutrigenomics and nutrition. Nutrigenomics is an important understanding of yours. Can you perhaps explain what it is and why it's so critical to preventing chronic ailments?
Absolutely. You know, when I first discovered epigenetics and nutrigenomics, it's like opening up Pandora's box. It just connected the dots for me. Epigenetics basically is the study of the biological mechanisms that switch the genes on or off. You know, our genes have little switches on them, as many as 200 on them, and there's specific mechanisms and events that can turn those genes off or on. And one of those things is the food we eat, and that's where the science of nutrigenomics comes in. Nutrigenomics basically is the science of how food affects those gene switches. You know, we finally understand now how and why food affects our health, but even more powerful than that, we now know that our DNA is not our destiny, that with our lifestyle changes and food choices, we can change our gene expression. And some of you may be familiar with Dr. Dean Ornish. I mean, he's definitely been a pioneer in that kind of study and research. And you know, I'll just give you a few examples of how powerful nutrigenomics can be. He took a group of people and put them on a high glycemic diet for 12 weeks. So lots of sugars, lots of carbs. And at the end of 12 weeks, there was an increase of 62 disease-causing genes. On the flip side, he then put them on a very low glycemic diet, which means, you know, low sugar or no sugar, low carbs, and he found that there was a decrease in 71 disease-causing genes. So with diet alone, he was able to turn on, you know, protective genes and also turn on, you know, disease-causing genes. In another study, he looked at men with very low-risk, early-grade prostate cancer. They hadn't had chemo or any type of traditional treatments, and he studied their gene expression from biopsies. So he put these men on a plant-based diet, lots of fish oils, vitamin E, 30 minutes of walking, meditation, stress management, you know, things like that. After 3 months, they repeated the biopsies. The men were now cancer-free, and many of the disease-promoting genes that, you know, were associated with cancer were now turned off, and many of the protective disease-preventing genes were upregulated and turned on. So just two simple examples of how powerful food can play a role in our healing and in our health.
Absolutely. And there was a fabulous Time magazine article some years back that actually had two identical twins. And that's twins obviously being two, but they had a whole story on identical twins and showing the difference from coming from the same fertilized egg, and then when they were born, seeing the dramatic difference over a lifetime, Can you maybe explain a little bit about what that would relate to or indicate? That a single egg and being identical, they've got the same genes, but I guess the value of gene expression and what shows up there.
Well, obviously their lifestyle and how they treated their bodies had a huge impact. It goes back to that, as you mentioned, the article was that our DNA is not our destiny. I do DNA testing all the time, and we can see the potential for disease-causing genes or health-promoting genes, and if they are supported, for example, if somebody has a tendency towards type 2 diabetes, for example, if they eat a typical standard American diet and they have a typical standard American lifestyle, the chances of them developing diabetes are much higher. I mean, I can look just within my own family. I have, a sister that's a diabetic, and I'm not, but we have completely different lifestyles.
Absolutely. And there's a growing body of research on a range of nutritional compounds that have this nutrigenomic benefit. Can you maybe share or spotlight some that you find fascinating in this area of research?
Well, before I was introduced to Clar8ty, I was already a big fan of broccoli sprouts, curcumin, and chaga, just to name a few. So when I discovered that they were they were put together in a great tasting formula and they worked synergistically, I was really, really excited to discover that. But one of my first foods that I was very excited about, especially when it came to the research I was doing with breast cancer specifically, were broccoli sprouts. We know that broccoli sprouts have 20 to 50 times more of the phytonutrient called sulforaphane than mature cruciferous vegetables. And there's over 1,000 peer-reviewed publications about the benefits of sulforaphane alone. We know that it activates over 200 genes related to cellular defense. We know that it suppresses inflammatory genes and it turns on protective genes. When it comes to cancer specifically, it can actually inhibit not only breast cancer, but several different types of cancers. But one thing that I really like about broccoli sprouts is that they actually target cancer stem cells. These are baby cancer cells that are not addressed by traditional medicine, unfortunately. So they may tell a person that they are quote-unquote cancer-free because they don't see anything in their blood work or they may not see anything on a scan, but they're not addressing the root cause of the cancer, which is the baby cancer cells or the stem cells. And, something as potent as the sulforaphane in the broccoli sprouts actually targets and kills those cancer stem cells, which is so important for long-term health. We know that sulforaphane also boosts your natural killer cells. These are the cells that go after the unhealthy cells and destroy them. But it's very important to know that not all broccoli sprouts are created equal, and that's what really impressed me with the product of Clar8ty, because we want to make sure that the sprouts that you're using are bioactive and that they have the crucial enzyme urosinase, because if they don't, then the sprouts really basically can't be as effective. They're not bioactive and available. The quality and the purity of Clar8ty is so important because we know that the broccoli sprouts are dehydrated at a very, very low temperature, which keeps the enzymes and the nutrients intact, which is so important. The other nutrient that I was very excited about was curcumin. There's over 3,300 studies and counting about the benefits of curcumin. We know that it inhibits the formation of cancer cells, again, through the activation and suppression of specific genes. So it turns on the good genes and it turns off the disease-causing genes. We know that inflammation is the foundation for all diseases in the body, whatever name you may give it. And we know that curcumin downregulates the inflammatory genes, that it affects over 100 pathways, that it inhibits tumor growth. Specifically for breast cancer, it literally kills cancer cells. It induces apoptosis or cancer cell death, which is so important for women, for example, that have triple-negative breast cancer. With traditional medicine, they're given a picture of doom and gloom because they don't have the chemotherapy drugs to treat this kind of cancer, and so they paint a very horrible picture. But curcumin is very, very powerful against triple-negative breast cancer. The downside of curcumin is that we know it has a very poor absorption or slow absorption in the body, but when you combine it with the piperine from black pepper, which Clar8ty has done, it increases the absorption of curcumin up to 2,000%. So when I saw, broccoli sprouts, curcumin, piperine, and then chaga, which chaga is a medicinal mushroom that inhibits the DNA damage. It has lots of anti-cancer properties. It's very anti-inflammatory. When I saw all of these ingredients together in a product that actually tasted good, it was a no-brainer. I was just really excited to be able to start sharing this with my audience.
Thank you so much. And I guess with the advent of epigenetics and nutrigenomics as a science, there's a growing level of awareness in the public as well. But I want to sort of go into this area of research that's been designed more so for the general public. And there's a series that you've been very popular in, and that's the Truth About Cancer as a document, not so much a documentary series, but an educational series where many leading voices have been interviewed, and it's been hugely successful globally. Can you maybe share a little bit about that series and why you think it's been so popular with the mainstream?
When Ty Bollinger approached me, I guess it was 3 years ago now, about this, docu-series that he wanted to do called The Truth About Cancer, I was so excited to be a part of it. And, I had no idea, and I don't think he had any idea of the impact that would have. I mean, his program has reached literally millions of people around the globe. And I think why it's been such a big hit is because it brought hope to people. When you hear the word cancer, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? You think about a very slow, torturous death, because of chemotherapy and radiation and surgery. And, that's the picture that traditional medicine has created when it comes to cancer. But the Truth About Cancer is really creating a paradigm shift because it's showing people that there are many experts out there, scientists, medical doctors, chiropractors, all kinds of nutritionists that are reversing disease and reversing cancer. And there were, real life testimonials of people who had reversed cancer. And, the proof was the evidence-based natural medicines that they were using. So it wasn't just some, hocus pocus new age stuff, but it was based on science. And so with the hope that it brought, I think it just, lit a fire under some people because it's like, I don't have to die a slow, torturous death. That even if I choose to do traditional medicine, I can still, do my broccoli sprouts and do my juicing and take my curcumin and my, my herbs and natural medicines, and that's going to help my body heal better. So it really created quite an awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that most people, even today still, that first emotional response is fear when they hear the word, the big C. But I also think that the series has been incredibly empowering for people, where they realize that there's not just sort of, it's not a sentence, it's not sort of a dead end and that's the way it's got to be, that there really other choices with regard to how they can navigate their lifestyle, and also the treatment protocols as well. Now, we're not suggesting that they go against their professional healthcare advice by any means whatsoever. We're not diagnosing or treating ourselves. What we're doing is providing information and education, and hopefully a little dose of inspiration for people to recognize that, you know, cancer, from my perception, is not something that you wake up with one day and you've got. It's actually something that you've been creating over time. And so if it's been created over time through poor lifestyle choices, then there's an opportunity to potentially unwind that as well. And I think that when we recognize that it's not a sentence, it's really a freeze frame in a given point in time, and we need to sort of pay attention to life on that. So as far as going back to Calibrate as well, you mentioned a couple of things with regard to some key ingredients. I guess my question is, what do you like? What appeals to you about it as a product?
What I really appreciate about it is that it's food for your genes. You know, we've come a long way. You know, we've taken ancient wisdom, we've combined it with modern science. I mean, we know that curcumin and piperine and foods have been, you know, healing people for many, many centuries, but now we understand why and how. And I appreciate so much that the synergistic formula basically turns on the primary antioxidant and detoxification enzymes. You know, we used to think that if we kept, you know, shoving, you know, more fruit drinks and foods that had a high ORAC score, you know, the antioxidant score, that was the best way to protect your body and improve your health. But now, with the science of nutrigenomics and epigenetics, we understand that the foods that we're eating can stimulate your own body's primary antioxidant and turn on the protective genes and the detoxification enzymes that will heal the body at a much deeper level. And, you know, I believe so strongly in Calibrate. I mean, obviously I take it, you know, myself 2-3 times a day, but I recommend it to all my clients, and my coaches, you know, recommend it also, simply because it's a basic part of the healing protocol. You can try and eat broccoli sprouts separately. You can try and take curcumin separately and probiotics, you know, and all these other things. But when you combine them all together, it really provides a great foundation for turning on the protective genes and turning off the inflammatory genes, which are, you know, the foundation for any disease.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that one of the constant things that we get as feedback is that there may be pieces of the puzzle that people have put together as far as different nutrients or lifestyle choices, but what we're delivering is something that's really convenient, and it certainly has helped a lot of people to make it a lifestyle choice rather than something that they can do for a short period of time. It becomes a very, very simple thing to integrate as part of preventative lifestyle choices as well. So just on that as well, I know that you've recently had a busy series of events in your life as a grandmother of 3 beautiful babies, and you've been skating around the country catching up with the new arrivals here, you know, more than ever before. When we have children born and then seeing kids coming into the world, I know for me as a grandparent, you know, just super mindful of how different the environment is for children growing up, and a lot of the other challenges that they've got when it comes to toxic assault as well, particularly in the formative years. Can you perhaps comment about that and maybe how Calibrate Kids can help?
Oh, absolutely. Unfortunately, and then very sadly, most children are born what we call pre-toxic. The Environmental Working Group did a fabulous job on a study called the 10 Americans, and they had the Red Cross draw cord blood from newborn infants, and they found in the blood cord of newborns over 200 carcinogenic chemicals in the umbilical cord. So, you know, first, so they're born pre-toxic, and then if they're not breastfed or if they don't receive the proper nutrition, a lot of these children don't stand a chance. You know, in fact, cancer is now the leading cause of death in children over the age of 1 year of age. I mean, it's just so sad to think about that. So, you know,
Crazy.
my daughter, it really is sad. So, you know, my daughters drank Clar8ty through their pregnancy, and their babies are very young still. They're still breastfeeding, but when they're a little bit older, I mean, for sure they're going to be on kids Clar8ty, because a child's immune system is so fragile, and we know we live in a toxic world, and no matter how clean you try to eat, you know, they still need that support. And what I love about the kids Clar8ty is that it takes in all these nutrigenomic substances and puts them all together in something that they can enjoy to eat, and it doesn't have sugar in it. It's actually, you know, very, very tasty, very nutritious. And you know, no matter how well you try to feed your children, they're not going to eat bowls and bowls of broccoli sprouts. They're not going to eat curcumin. You know, so the kids Clar8ty puts this all together, and you know, it's going to help them to detoxify the environmental chemicals that they may be exposed to. It's going to help reduce inflammation and oxidative stress that their little bodies are going through. We know that the health of our gut is so important. So the kids Clar8ty has probiotics in it to help, you know, support the immune system. EFAs, you know, essential fatty acids, so important for brain development. So, you know, you put all these nutrients together into a product that, you know, tastes good, you know, does not have sugar in it, and it supports gene expression. It's a no-brainer. I mean, every child on the planet should be drinking this.
Yeah, look, I feel the same way as well, and I think that you know, looking around, it's not too difficult to sort of see some of the changes in our society, particularly when it comes to the advent of many behavioral disorders as well. And I know that not only is it a challenge for the child, but definitely for families and for children that are of school age going to school, and what they can present as either fitting in or not fitting in. And some of the feedback that we've had has been so heartwarming, in as much as, you know, a child doesn't really care about the science of nutrigenomics or epigenetics. We know that. But when they can come home and the teacher's report is that they're focusing and they're better behaved in class, and another instance where the boy said that his, you know, having been an asthmatic all his life, that his lungs didn't feel heavy anymore. I mean, these are things that affect not only the child, but everything from the ripple effect as well. And going back full circle to this ripple effect, concerning your Breast Cancer Conqueror website and what you teach there, Dr. V, you know, can you maybe just share what it represents? Is that we're not taking just responsibility for ourselves. What's that ripple effect that you truly have seen show up as a result of people becoming empowered?
Well, that's a good word. It's empowering when you can teach people to take responsibility for their health and help them to understand that their disease, you know, whether it's cancer or whatever else, is just a symptom. It's just the tip of the iceberg, that they really have a measure of control on their health. It changes lives. You know, for women specifically, I mean, women are, you know, their mothers, their wives, their friends, their sisters, and when women are impacted, it impacts, you know, the whole family. I hear stories, I get testimonials, I meet people in public that, you know me, I don't know them, but they tell me stories about, you know, my sister or my friend, you know, read your book, or she's, you know, followed your coaching program and she's now cancer-free. And, you know, you think of, you know, the impact that has on people's lives, you know, the butterfly effect, you know, how one person can affect, you know, so many lives. So it's very, very humbling to be able to have the privilege of sharing a message of hope, because so many people you know, I work with women specifically, but, you know, they're confused, they're frustrated, they're overwhelmed with all the information out there, and they don't know how to put it together. And so when you can point people in a direction and give them guidance and give them a step-by-step program, it releases, you know, it takes the stress away, and it makes it so much easier for them to follow through.
Absolutely, and I'm absolutely committed to ensuring that everybody gets hold of your website. So not only for being able to understand some more about your own work, but also in the event that they have got a family member or loved one that is challenged. I would suspect that even though you're working within the breast cancer focus, specifically, that realistically the big C could be fitted into the nutrigenomics and lifestyle choices across the board. That it's not necessarily just breast cancer per se, but it's really all forms of chronic degenerative conditions can also be identified to have a similar cellular mechanism that's causing a challenge, whether it be toxic lifestyles or otherwise. It's laboring the body. It all comes back down to becoming better informed and hopefully making better choices as well. Do you have any closing comments that you might like to share with our listeners for today?
Well, I think the important thing to take away from all of this is recognizing that, you know, you have choices, and you have, you know, the responsibility of your health. And healing your body is not just about healing the bump or the lump or the disease, whatever that may be, but it's really about healing your life. You know, you'd mentioned earlier, it's not necessarily what you eat, but what's eating you, and that's so true. If you keep doing the things you've always done, you're going to get the same results. And so healing or being proactive with prevention is about change and transformation. And if you can commit to that, it's not going to happen overnight. You know, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. It takes, you know, it's taken you years to develop these habits and this disease in your body, so it's going to take, you know, months, sometimes years to turn things around. So there's hope. There's hope, and if you're committed and you have a goal and a goal in sight that you want to achieve and you want to improve your health, there's so many wonderful products and websites out there that can really help you turn your life around.
Thank you so much, Dr. V. And you'll see also on the screen there, Heal Breast Cancer Naturally, 7 Essential Steps to Beating Breast Cancer by Dr. Veronique Desaulniers. Please get yourself a copy, share it with your friends, your loved ones, and by all means, visit breastcancerconqueror.com and learn some of these things that may be supportive to not only getting well, but staying well, and choose life. What I'd like to also do at the end of this call is to recognize that we are not prescribing, treating, or diagnosing disease. So there is a disclaimer that you'll see at the end of this presentation. This is for educational purposes only. And I would just like to say a big, big thank you on behalf of the Clar8ty family to Dr. V for not only sharing with us some time today, but also for what you're doing in the world and inspiring some hope for not only the women who are maybe afflicted with breast cancer itself, but also the families and their loved ones. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for sharing my message of hope.